Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sovryn Community Call, episode 39. This is Ingalandia, head of ecosystem growth with Sovryn, the place to be for your Bitcoin DeFi needs. Following the momentum we've gained since Bitcoin 2022 in Miami, we've got some updates for you today regarding the Droppr launch, the branding call we had, limit orders, and the bonding curve. And again, if you know someone from a project that could benefit from collaborating with us, I'm always open to a conversation. Reach out to me on Twitter or Discord at Ingalandia. They could be, for example, crypto mobile apps, payment platforms, thought leaders, other layer one ecosystems that might want to implement our products, fund managers, etc. So send me a DM about them with some context, and I'll see if there's a possible way we can collaborate. So you know where to find me. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here and sharing in this mission. The guidelines are, if you'd like to speak, toggle the mute button and be patient, and we'll get to you. Also note that we periodically pause between the updates for any questions you might have. So before going through the agenda today and introducing Yago, would anyone who's here for the first time like to give us a shout out and say hello? Do we have any brave new bloods here who would like to say hi? All right. Let's bring in Yago with strategy.
Hi guys. I'm going to keep it brief today because there's a lot to cover. Just a few things that I wanted to point out. There's some pretty important threads currently in the forum. There's SIP47, which is the changing of the guardians. I believe Light will speak about that a little bit more. And associated with that is SIP46. These are both I'll let Light talk about them, but these are important ones. There's also the Sovryn branding town hall discussion, which first of all, if you weren't able to join, take a look and also join that discussion. And there's the draft tips from GIMP's big package, which have been attracting good attention. Also, if you have analytical skills, risk management skills, data skills, or good familiarity with governance and tokenomics of other systems, check out the Sovryn Tokenomics Task Force thread. There's a very interesting conversation going on there, and we need to get the best sovereign minds on this because managing risk and the economics of the overall system is core now and will continue to be in the future. I'd also like to give a shout out to Sacro, who's been doing an absolutely phenomenal job of posting really great information under various threads that he calls a Sovryn's Journal. He's now up to part 5, and you may want to check out his Substack as well. And in addition to that, we have some additional conversation from Droppr today and further news. So in order not to take up more time, let's move this along, and back to you, Ingalandia.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Yago. If you want to check out Sacro's blog, go to sovrynjournal.substack.com. Great writing there. So let's move on to John Light. Do you have anything to share with us today?
Yeah, I have a couple of updates to talk about. First thing I'll mention is more of a personal point, which is apparently I have a rather convincing impersonator on Twitter. I have made it into the big leagues alongside Elon Musk and Jack with these Twitter impersonators. But if you get any suspicious-looking DMs from somebody that looks like me, just block and report them. No need to follow up with me about it. I'm aware. But on a more positive note, with Sovryn updates, on the product side, the only update I have to share is about the Mint Bonding Curve app. So after a couple of months on testnet, we moved that to mainnet. We had a hiccup with the mainnet deployment that has since been fixed, so you should be able to use the Mint bonding curve app as expected now on mainnet. Thanks to everybody who was quick to point out and report the issues. And on the governance side, as Yago was mentioning, I just published a couple of draft tips in the Bitocracy forum. SIP 46 is about accepting ownership of sovereign contracts. So most of the smart contracts in the system right now are currently owned by the Exchequer multisig. This was to enable fast updates in response to any smart contract issues that might arise. But we've gotten to the point with most of the contracts that we feel comfortable now transferring that ownership to Bitocracy. This means that any, for the upgradable contracts, for any upgrades going forward, there will need to be a SIP for those upgrades to happen. And most of those contracts can be transferred by Exchequer multisig unilaterally, except for the AMM contracts, where Bitocracy actually needs to vote to accept the transfer of ownership. And so that's what SIP 46 accomplishes. That's going to be the main on-chain executable, is just accepting that ownership transfer. And then it also provides the documentation about all of the other smart contract ownership changes that Exchequer will be making, which they will be able to affect unilaterally. So basically, Exchequer will be able to make those transfers without any action on the part of Bitocracy, but we just wanted to make sure that those transfers are documented and that the community knows that this is going to happen. So all of that is in SIP 46. And then in SIP 47, changing of the guardians, basically this is a operational change for the guardians that we currently have. At the smart contract level, these functions are separated in these smart contracts, but they are held by the same, the guardian role is held by the same entity, which is again the Exchequer multisig. So we have the contracts guardian, which has the ability to pause or freeze the contracts, which have that pause or freeze functionality. And then we have the Bitocracy guardian, which has the power to veto any SIP that has been approved by Bitocracy. This is a safeguard in case of an event where a malicious proposal is approved, maybe because of a 51% attack or something like that on the Bitocracy governance system. For example, with the recent SIP 43 incident, where the attacker, if they had been able to successfully exploit the vulnerability that we found, they would have been able to give themselves an arbitrarily high amount of voting power, which would have allowed them to pass a malicious proposal. The Bitocracy guardian would have been able to veto that proposal and prevent that bad proposal from passing. And so the Bitocracy guardian is a role that we want to keep for the foreseeable future, but that role as specified in SIP 47 is going to be split out into a different multisig. So we'll have one multisig that will take the role of the contracts guardian, and we have a separate multisig now that is going to be the Bitocracy guardian. And this just helps streamline the operations of those different roles, and also add some more security by making the holders of these different signing keys different parties. So rather than having all of the same parties signing on both guardians, we now have two separate sets of parties who are signing on these different guardian multisigs. So I encourage you all to Sorry,
Sorry,
Yago, were
John,
you going to say
just wanted
something?
to add that just to make clear that this isn't expected to be the final state, and the current envisioned state this will evolve to would be to allow any effectively any delegate or SOV staker with enough voting power to be able to pause the system at any time or pause vote. And the idea was and has been to allow this so that we can allow us to over time migrate away from having a permissioned guardian set to having a permissionless staker set to be able to perform these functions, while at the same time maintaining a set of incentives where, were they to do this, they could potentially have part of their stake slashed. That requires additional development, both in terms of specification and in terms of actually upgrading the Bitocracy code. And so for the alpha and probably early beta state, we don't expect that to be the case. But it's important that we understand that where the vision currently is set to go.
Thanks for providing that additional information, Yago. And I would add to that we also initially had a plan of enabling Bitocracy to override a veto if there was sufficient support for a proposal. So, we have to take into consideration, what if the Guardian was actually compromised and and was vetoing all proposals, even good ones? This would effectively halt the operations of Bitocracy, which could be annoying in the best case scenario and catastrophic in the worst case scenario. And so providing the ability for Bitocracy to override the veto with sufficient support, basically, 80% of all of the token holders are like, okay, we need to make forward progress. We need to get out from under the Guardian's thumb. They would have the ability to do that. However, because of the issue that was found in SIP 43, which would have given the attacker an overwhelming amount of voting power, that would be like the one scenario where you do not want to have this Bitocracy override functionality or veto override functionality. And so we decided to institute a cooling off period where, now that we fixed that vulnerability, we're going to wait 6 months and then check in and see how confident we are in that particular contract, which would have potentially caused an issue if we implemented that override feature. So there are the additional changes that Yago mentioned, kind of envisioned, as well as this ability to actually override the Guardian functionality if there's sufficient support from Bitocracy. But it's going to take more time for those envisioned changes to be proposed and realized. But yeah, I'll just wrap up that topic by saying, if any of that interests you, definitely go check out the SIPs in the forum, and I welcome any feedback, questions, happy to discuss. And that's all I had for today.
Awesome. Thank you, Light. When I hear you say changing of the Guardian, SIP 47, it makes me feel like we live in a literal comic book with such a title like that. Do we have any questions for John Light?
I have some questions, John, if you don't mind. First off, I just want to say congratulations. I feel like this is kind of an unsung hero of what Sovryn needs, and I know it's something you've been working on, and it's super important, but not always the most sexy thing. So thank you. It's not clear to me on the Bitocracy Guardian or the Contracts Guardian, who are going to be the signers of that 3 of 9 and 3 of 12, right? For the Bitocracy Guardian, you said the Exchequer multisig is going to be updated, but updated to who? And then who are going to be the signers of the Contracts Guardian?
Yeah, those are great questions, and I need to add some additional context around this to the actual SIP or forum thread. I just wanted to get the links in there as soon as possible before the community call started. But basically, right now we have an initial set of Guardian members in mind, and they will be made public. But we are reviewing that list amongst the initial Exchequer multi-sig members, and the Exchequer committee will also get shared this list, and we want to make sure everybody's aligned on who should be on the list. And then once we have kind of internal alignment, we will extend a formal invitation to the people who we have in mind to join the list. And once we have accepted invitations from everybody and we've finalized who the membership list will actually be, then we'll add it into the SIP text so that the community can review and give feedback as well.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, do we have any more questions for Light before we move on to Ororo? Alrighty, Ororo, please take the floor.
Hey, thanks. So since the last call, apart from the mint bonding curve release, we also had a staking contract update with the execution of SIP 44. And you might remember that we had this issue with the voting power manipulation, which Lloyd just mentioned as well. And we closed these attack vectors as well as all potential similar ones with the most recent SIP. So while SIP 43, or was it SIP 42? I do not remember, but the first staking SIP had closed one specific entry point. With the second staking SIP, we mitigated a whole family of potentially similar attack vectors. And this was much needed, and now we can, again, rest assured of the staking contract. Speaking of issues, we also had a FastBTC outage last weekend for about 1 day, which we identified later than we should have, and but in the end it was fixed, and FastBTC is processing all transactions again as usual. Funds have never been at risk here, but what happened was a partition of the network because one of the nodes dropped, and for some reason the rest of the network divided, and then we did not have any maturity on any of the two subnetworks to actually process the FastBTC transactions. So very sorry for the inconvenience. We are still looking into the actual root cause. We fixed one issue, but we cannot be sure that this was the one which was actually causing this. So we are spending some more time for analysis and investigation and hope to find the actual root cause so that we can be sure that it will not happen again in the future. Apart from that, we continued our work on a couple of different development streams. That's the FastBTC reclaiming feature. So in a situation similar like the one we had last weekend with the outage, in this case, users would have been able to reclaim their RBTC and would not have had to wait for the FastBTC nodes to process the transactions, but they could have decided to take the RBTC another route then because they see it's not being processed. So the reclaiming feature is something we're also looking forward to, so that if there should be any outages in the future and you're waiting for your transaction to be processed, you can always get it back if it hasn't been processed already. And then we are preparing for the zero beta release. We are still working on the perps, where I think that Vasily will give us an update afterwards. I'm actually not completely sure. So Vasily, sorry if you had not planned to give an update.
I can quickly do that now.
Okay.
So we have resubmitted to audit the the contracts. So basically, we submitted more than a month ago. Then we had some minor adjustments to make, and now we resubmitted. So that means the audit is most likely completed before the end of the month. And then on limit and stop limit orders. That's basically it from the perp side.
Thanks, Vasily. That's already a lot. So yeah, development here continues as well. One of the work streams which was in progress already a long time ago is the liquidity mining work, which we now finally picked up again to allow for multi-reward liquidity multi-token liquidity mining rewards, as well as introducing just some changes which we would want to have from the UX perspective. And we are refactoring the front end as well as the smart contract, the front with the atomic components and gas improvements. And so yeah, the work stream in progress is the graph, which is where we've been working on for quite a while now, and we are now doing the final tweaks, but it's already on mainnet, not yet shareable publicly, but it's working well. And the next steps would be the front-end integration. The next releases we are expecting are the trading update with the limit orders. The limit orders were publicly deployed on testnet last week, and some of you already tested it and provided us valuable feedback. Thanks a lot for all of this feedback, especially to Lactarius, who's always a star and always providing us with so much valuable feedback to anything we put out. That's very, very helpful. Just awesome. And apart from the trading update, we will also have the transfer of the contract ownerships to governance, which Light has already mentioned before. That's the dev update in general. I just want to repeat what I also said on the last community call. We are still looking for front-end developers. So if you know someone, let them know, let us know. You can check the open positions on the wiki, and there's a reward also if you find someone which we end up hiring, so it's profitable as well. So we would be looking forward to additional applicants. That's it from my side.
Thanks a lot, Ororo. Do we have any questions from the audience regarding her updates? Alrighty, cool. So I would like to bring in Michael of Droppr. I think he has some exciting things to say. Michael, are you there?
I am. Hey, everybody. Droppr, #soon. As we're experienced with always, anticipating things, time that it takes to develop them always takes a little bit longer than expected. So Droppr is following the Sovryn tradition in that respect. We had hoped to have had the announcement out at the beginning of this week for when the snapshot would be taken and when the pre-sale would happen. Our closest estimate right now is that the pre-sale will be happening on May 5th or May 6th, and the snapshot will be taking place a week before that, so at the end of April. Basically what has happened for us is the staking contract pause also slowed down our ability to do some of the development, and also essentially our partnership with RSK, where it is that we're looking to integrate the RNS reverse name lookup for people for participating in the public sale, which will be happening in June. There's an outstanding pull request, and that feature needs to be in our base smart contract for deploying the PFP sale. So we're just waiting for that pull request to be merged so that we can start testing that feature and then be able to turn over our contracts to audits. Over the last few weeks, where I've been running around to different conferences here in Europe, I was able to secure commitments from 2 top-level auditors for auditing the Droppr smart contracts. That's Zokyo is one, and the second one is Hacken, which I understand has also done audits for Sovryn. I found out when I was confirming the audit slot for us. So they're a really awesome team. And as you know, security has always been one of the primary values of Sovryn, that the code that they deploy is as secure as possible. And so we're continuing that tradition with Droppr as well. So those 3 things have been the reason for our delay, but really, #soon. We're really on the doorstep of being able to offer the pre-sale to everybody. And in addition to that, I'll finally be getting out my AMA very soon, and you guys will have a lot more information in the coming week about what we're doing moving forward.
Fantastic, Michael.
Ingalandia, can I give a quick update from the Exchequer?
Yes, please.
Great, thanks. So I just want to let everyone know that today we posted the financial reports for 2021 on the wiki. I put up a forum post in General Commons linking to that report. We may still move it to another section of the wiki, in which case I'll update the forum post. But in general, the report includes a breakdown of the financials for 2021, the use of funds by the Treasury, as well as the outline for the proposed budget for 2022 and for basically the next 12 months. We expect to have a more detailed budget posted as a step within the next 2 weeks for the Autocracy to vote on. So that's up in the forum, and if anyone has any questions about it or anything, you can feel free to post your questions in the forum, and myself or someone else from the Exchequer Committee will be able to answer those questions. Thanks.
Fantastic. So regarding business development workings, we're in the middle of a conversation with the major fiat on and off ramp and sorting out what the agreement would look like. And this could potentially enable the Sovryn dollar to be utilized for several payments platforms like Kato Money, which has a way for purchasing items online, like Amazon style. And they'll be coming out with also a savings product as well. So hopefully we get that through the door. We have one builder who's now working on one of our bounties, namely the contract governance dashboard. And based on his mock-up images, it seems like he'll be a great candidate for working on the allowance revoker tool as well. And internally, we're exploring ways to create an effective SDK for integration with some of the projects that we met during Bitcoin 2022. It might be too early to say which ones, but Idan Yago interviewed one of them, which you can see videos of. It was Jameson Lott from CASA. So we're in conversation with them and seeing what they would need to move the integrations forward. But yeah, nothing's set in stone yet. And that's basically it regarding updates. We've got a chunk of time left, so the floor is open for anyone if you have any feedback or any questions, or just anything that you want to comment on regarding the branding town hall we had the other day. The floor is open. Not all at once, everyone.
Maybe everyone is aware of the fact that we have an internal KPI of reducing meeting time by 50%.
That could be it. Maybe they overheard.
Well done, everyone. Keeping us to our OKRs.
Yeah.
I would be curious if there's like a sneak peek of anything going on with Pattern. I know it's still early, but I don't know. I'm curious if there's anything cool to share there, like images.
There are some images that are coming out. I don't know if there's anything we can share yet. Let me actually check in with you guys around this. So I'm a little bit wary of sharing stuff mid-process, specifically around images, and that's because of my experience with just like branding in any organization that I've done it with. Is everyone gets really, really interested. People love it, and they also tend to become very opinionated. And so it's sort of like, it's something which is really easy to have an opinion about and really easy to comment about, so people do. And at the same time, design by committee, especially of imagery and aesthetics, tends to be extremely poor. So I'm a little bit wary specifically around this of making it a public process too early. But I'm curious what you guys think.
Honestly, I feel like that's probably the right call, but I just couldn't help my human impatient urge to ask.
Yeah. Don't show it because people get wed to it until it is that you're pretty confident that what you have is good. My experience mirrors yours, Yago.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's also one of the reasons why we haven't shown anything from Droppr yet, because things are also sort of like changing. So, yeah.
Idan, so do you have any takeaways or afterthoughts following that past call regarding how the community feels about the brand voice, and were there any confirmations, or were there any new sort of insights?
Well, I'm very much hoping that we'll start to see a robust and engaged conversation in the forum. However, there has been some initial reactions. I think overall reactions were quite positive. I was quite nervous before presenting because I think it's a bit of a radical departure. And I think I've also expressed that internally, and really maybe more than anyone, I have been quite wary and cautious about saying anything around this bigger narrative, even though I think it's core to what we're doing, both because I think it can be confusing, because it is a very unusual, very different approach than pretty much any other project, and could overwhelm some of the other stuff that we're doing, but also because I really don't want Sovryn to become a project where people think that it is like vaporware or hype, and that we're focusing on things, that, a big picture instead of nuts and bolts fundamentals. But, and there were, and in conversations I've had both in sort of like the dojo and in the forums, that there was a bit of that response, but mostly the response seems to be that people really want to educate themselves more and learn more and get more information about what the bigger picture vision for sort of the institutional nation type play is. And so there's quite a lot of material that we've written around this, which we haven't published yet, and we'll need to focus on publishing it. But overall, I think the responses that I got were very exciting and gratifying. I think they were very supportive, and gave me a sense of confidence that maybe actually we should be talking. Sort of like, I think we can have the courage to talk about our most ambitious goals more than we currently are. So that was one big takeaway for me. The other big takeaway for me, and this is not specific to the Sovryn Town Hall, but sort of reinforced it for me. One of the problems with this conversation that we're having right now, and most of the conversations that we have, is in most settings, you have a minority of people who are actually going to speak up publicly. And that leaves you with a lot of silent voices. But when you're in a physical space, you can see them, right? So like when you're giving a presentation or talking to, people in a theater or in a boardroom or across the table, you can, even when they're not speaking, you can see reactions. We don't have that, and I think it's given me and some other people who are presenting frequently sort of a little bit of a disengaged feeling sometimes. Like we wish we could have a more immediate and stronger sense of how people were reacting. And so I think that reinforces two things for me. First of all, trying to encourage more conversations on the forums immediately after or sort of related to these presentations that we do. And then the second thing is, and this is something that we're working on, putting together a physical event where sovereigns can gather and meet in person. And then one last point on that is that there is a bit of a challenge there, since so much of the community is anonymous, how we would manage to maintain that anonymity. And actually, if people have ideas, but like letting people register with their pseudonyms sort of is an obvious step. Pay with crypto. But basically, one of the challenges, obviously, when you're entering into the meet space is maintaining your pseudonymity. And so I got a little bit off topic there, but that's also something that if people want to discuss, we can, I'd be happy to see reactions and conversation around.
This is a non-serious answer, but sometimes a lot of influencers, they have like just public, not town halls, but they'll do like Instagram live, where it's like you can see, it's like really easy to read the comments, and like it's easy to see reactions from the audience, even if they're not talking, with like the emojis and the hearts and.
Actually, that you said it's not serious, but it actually might be not that bad of an idea if we could do something like that. In which case we may want to consider switching away from Discord as our primary presentation forum, and maybe switching over to YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else have ideas on that? Is that crazy? Is that worth trying out?
Well, let me ask a question. If there were a space for an event for people could mingle, how do people feel about attending an event anonymously? Because we could sell an NFT for a ticket, which is only tied to a wallet address. Would people actually attend a meet space event that want to maintain their anonymity and exchange their actual, physical presence, or maybe even their name, with people that they choose to at an event? I mean, I'm curious how people feel about that. And I asked that question because, Parallel Polis in the early days started that way. The early people that came there, there was you couldn't take pictures in the event hall. Everybody was, most people wore masks. We all hate wearing masks now, but in the early days, there was, aside from the incredibly well-known public figures like Adam Back or Peter Todd and whatever, there was a whole group of Bitcoiners that showed up anonymously. So it's not like there's not precedent for people having spaces where they can gather like that. Okay, crickets.
Well, I'm curious. So the people we have here, do you often attend Bitcoin meetups where you live? This is an open question for anyone.
I do, and I'd attend a Sovryn event if we hosted it.
Nope. Would there be like a European one and a North American one or something like that? How would that work?
What my initial guess might be is we start showing more of a presence at these conferences where there are potentially more sovereigns who show up, and I anticipated meeting a couple of them at Bitcoin 2022, and I think that might be our best chance of assembling maybe half a dozen to a dozen, Sovryn users and contributors together, and having our first few meetups in that sense. I also know that New York does have a few Sovryn contributors and users there, and a few of them showed up to the meetup. And I think as I show more of a presence in these meetup groups in New York, I can probably bring more of them to our own meetups, and that could be. I mean, I don't know if they would really be too adamant about their anonymity. They tend to be more just public and Web3 and just DeFi people. I'm kind of just rambling, but I think following these conferences and maybe organizing meetups targeted towards the people we know who will attend while growing communities in our own cities would be the way to go.
Yeah, just to play off of that, I would be putting together a meetup probably within the next month and a half. I'm located East Coast U.S., Massachusetts area, so anyone that would be interested in attending something like that, you'll get, we'll talk about it more in the coming weeks. So I'm looking to put something like that together. Also, just as an aside, this is Scotty G from the guidance team. I just wanted to let everyone know that the link has been updated on our blog post, and also for the financial updates fiscal year 2021 on the wiki as well. So that should all be working correctly. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
My name is Maven. I'm in China, so I cannot really attend these foreign meetings wherever they are. I just have a thought. I've seen some of these other Discord groups that goes on and has these talks, and they are very actively using the general chat simultaneously as they're talking, so people come back. And I see that now in the general chat here, there's barely anyone writing anything. So I think that could be something that can be pushed a little bit.
Sure. I just think it's just from a UX perspective, it's difficult to be both in this room and in the general chat. And one of the things that I notice tends to happen is that people will mute themselves and they'll be in the general chat, and then they need to go back to find the community call and then unmute themselves, and it can create like very, very stilted conversation.
I don't know if this would be.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if this would be appealing to some people, but when you look at this community call and you see maybe a couple of hundred people on there, a lot of people don't want to say anything. But I wonder if we could maybe have a few smaller events where people could sign up and there'd be a limit of, I don't know, 10 or 20 people, and just have more of those and have an opportunity for people to feel more comfortable speaking. I don't know what the threshold would be to encourage more people to interact, but I do know that it is a significant barrier for some people to say something in a context where there are 200 other people listening.
Yeah, that's a good point.
People can ask their questions in general chat, and if one of you guys can pick their questions out from the chat, then people don't have to unmute themselves. They can just write a question if they don't want to talk. So that's the idea.
Sacro, did you want to say something, or did you already say it?
Yes. So thank you very much for the shout out earlier for my blog. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to say that I would really like to join in person in a meeting. It depends on where it is, but for example in Europe it would be great to have something like that.
And I have another question. I would like to know what the core team members think about the current discussions about tokenomics. And I think, Ingalandia, you had also a forum post where you wanted to discuss reducing some liquidity mining rewards. What are the thoughts on this? Thank you.
Well, I've been following some of the conversation that you guys have been having. My overall sense right now is I think there's a few things for us to consider. One is it might be worthwhile considering making the liquidity mining rewards liquid, or at least partially liquid. I think we might get more bang for our buck that way. There's disadvantages and advantages to that. I don't think we need to go into all of them right now, but there is a reason to have them locked up. Broadly speaking, is it encourages people to think about and get involved with Sovryn for the long term. But there's also other shifts. One of them is, I think we may want to consider concentrating the liquidity in those pools which are most important to us. Now, this obviously also has the disadvantage of it would reduce liquidity. So, for example, let's say we didn't care so much about BTC ETH. We could stop rewarding that, but concentrate all of the rewards in SOV BTC and particularly dollar BTC pools. So I think that is also something to consider. And I think the biggest for me, the biggest thing that we could probably benefit from now is optimizing the not insignificant rewards we're giving out on a weekly basis to drive BTC dollar liquidity. Because I think that would help us nail, like we should try and see if we can nail one pool that becomes really liquid, low slippage, and really facilitates margin trading in larger amounts. And also the vast majority of the SOV that is currently being distributed is being distributed for the purposes of the liquidity mining. One other thing which I've discussed, but we haven't hit upon, I think, the right way to do it yet, is I think instead of giving out, sort of renting liquidity through the liquidity mining rewards that we're giving out now, it would be better to buy liquidity and effectively end up with protocol-owned liquidity. We've reviewed a number of different options to do this, and I don't think we've hit upon one that we're very happy with yet. But that, I think, would be a big one.
Yeah, and Sacro, that's another thing that I've kind of looked into, all the points that Yago mentioned. So we can definitely discuss that, on the side, kind of our other conversations as well. I have a general question. We've kind of alluded to this like SDK, this like Sovryn development kit for third parties. I'm just curious if we can maybe like touch on that a little bit more. Like, what exactly does that entail? How big of a project is it? Like, it's piqued my interest, but I just don't know enough about it.
Yeah. Well, this Zero protocol, as we know, has a lot of potential, especially for a lot of these mobile apps that are very, very popular among like a lot of the new users of crypto who just kind of want to park their crypto or even borrow dollars, like Celsius. And this is a great way to sort of reduce the cost of capital, as you imagine. And a lot of these potential partners are going to ask for the same things regarding this documentation. So this is basically one solution that we can have that'll just make it easier to implement the protocol in the back end for a lot of these applications. And once we figure it out for one partner, it's so much easier for every single one after that. So I've been researching how Aave has done it and how Maker has done it, and just presenting that to Ororo and Light to see if we can basically model after it. but also just asking what these potential partners need, because they might not need all of this sort of in-depth documentation that Maker provides or Avid provides. So it's one of the initial steps for getting a protocol adopted.
Yeah, I can also give you some update regarding the development side here. We are now just starting the effort with the SDK. It is on the plan for the current sprint, which started yesterday and is going to be picked up. We will start the SDK effort with the Zero product because, like Ingemar explained, there are a few wallet providers who are interested in integrating with Zero, so this is a huge opportunity. We're going to start here and expand it from there and basically create different NPM packages which can then be used by integrators, and they can pull exactly the products they need or a sort of combined umbrella package if they just want to have everything available. And this SDK isn't just supposed to make the integration for these third parties as easy as possible, because it means that not just all of the documentation is provided, but there are also integration examples. The smart contract addresses are part of it, and there are just very easy ways to integrate, which makes it takes a lot of the pain to integrate then with Sovryn. Not just for the integrator, but also for the core team, because currently whenever someone integrated Sovryn in one way or another, like for example when the quality integrated FastBTC, it always requires some resource from core to support them in the process. And after we're done investing in the effort of producing a proper SDK, I would expect this effort for the core team also to go down. This means less distraction for the core team, means we can stick better with our plans and schedules and deliver awesome products.
Amazing. I love it. I think it sounds super cool. And then from a technical side, do you, Ororo, see this as kind of like a big technical undertaking that would take on a lot of technical debt? Or is this like, I don't know, I'm just trying to gauge like how big of an ask it is.
All our products, because there are many, it will take a while. So this is also why we're starting off with only one, which is Zero, as an MVP, so to speak, which we can then use also to get feedback from integrators and see what we would need to change about the structure and the design of the SDK, so that we can change that one and then expand from there to the whole set of products. So I would say that the Sovryn SDK itself is a multi-month process, but the Zero SDK is something we should have rather soonish. And the next ones would then be the on-off ramp as well as the aggregators, just so that we have the complete Zero stack and everything which is required to use Zero from Bitcoin, to use the stablecoin liquidity on other chains ready. And then we can start adding the AMM and start adding the lending pools and start adding the trading, margin trading and everything we have. So one step at a time and just go. Yeah, it is some work, but it's good that we're doing that.
Very, very cool. Thank you so much.
All right, we've got a couple minutes left. We can probably take one more question before I adjourn the official recording of the Sovryn community call. And for anyone who wants to hang, this channel is open, though a few of us might have to drop to attend to our Sovryn duties. Noah asked, can someone explain how Zero is decentralized and if there is any risk of it being centralized?
I can try to answer that question. So Zero is a smart contract system that lives on the RSK blockchain, and so it operates rather autonomously. Like there's no individuals that are like taking custody of your RBTC, but rather you're actually just depositing your RBTC into the smart contract, and then the smart contract gives you a stablecoin loan based on the amount of collateral that you put in and how much you want to borrow. And then the main point of centralization, you could call it, would be the oracle that is used to provide the price feed data to the smart contracts so that it knows when your collateral needs to be liquidated to prevent your loan from going underwater. And the oracle is initially going to be the same oracle that we use for RBTC USD price data for the margin protocol as well. And it's updatable. And so as Oracle technology continues to be improve and enable further decentralization through medianizing and staking and various other mechanisms that have been proposed, that can continue to decentralize as well. So the Oracle only has basically an effect of when your collateral gets liquidated, but it doesn't actually take custody. There's no central party that actually has custody of your funds or anything like that. Now that's assuming you already kind of understand that RBTC itself is a pegged version of Bitcoin that where you're basically giving your Bitcoin to the PowPeg functionaries that are operating the 7 out of 12 multi-sig that controls the PowPeg, accepting that as a kind of baseline understanding of how Bitcoin is custodied in the system. There are no additional custody assumptions or risks in the system. Does that answer your question, Noah? You can type if you don't want to talk.
Great, understood, thanks. So thanks everyone for joining our call and being a part of our mission to carve out a trail for Bitcoin secured financial sovereignty, dismantling what people know and understand about money. So help us spread the word and create more sovereign individuals. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Telegram, twitter.com/sovrynbtc. Subscribe to the Sovryn YouTube channel and visit our DApp at sovryn.app. So Mickey, you may stop the recording. And for anyone who wants to hang out, feel free to do so. I'll be here for a few more minutes. I'm sure other Sovryn contributors will be here for a few more minutes. But the official call is now over. So thanks everyone and stay sovereign.